Dewey, and this is Combating the Narrative. With me today is Victor Saxon. Just wanna we'll test the audio right away. Just let us know if our balance is fine. We were having a little bit of a difficult time pre-stream here, so if we need to adjust, we will. But no, I'm not dead. I was recently liberated from the basement of the MI6 facility and made it back home to the States, ready to stream and keep on combating the narrative. So one of the first things before we get into sort of the meat and potatoes of our stream today is just something that sort of struck me about somebody I've streamed with in the past. Those of you who have been in the Discord with me, Ryan Falk's Discord, and of course my own. There's a guy in there by the name of Joseph Bronsky who is purportedly on our side, but he's just got the worst takes every single time. Like, I have not once heard this guy advocate for some sort of right-wing position. It's just his own made-up field of science he calls exousiology, or the study of power, which is totally different from political science. Trust me, guys. But
agree with you.
okay. So I think you might have been muted for all that, but
Oh no, God, why'd you do that to me?
well, I had to mute the desktop audio, and I didn't think that would. It's neither here nor there.
You won't.
You want to just?
You won't be forgiven for that.
No, I will not, and nor should I be. That was unforgivable. But
Give an SVD. If you can hear me, please say so.
I mean, there's probably like a minute delay, but
Oh, that's true. Well, he'll say it at some point. I'll let you do more of the talking.
yeah. So, in any case, Joseph Bronsky, right? He's got this weird hate boner for a guy named Leather Apron Club because he dared to question the idea that the reason Jews are disproportionately in positions of power compared to, obviously they're 2% of the population, and they make up in just about every field and industry much higher than 2% of the ruling class, so to speak. He dared to challenge that was a function of their IQ, which of course Bronsky took exception to, and he's talked about it at length. And recently, Leather Apron Club released a video on eating bugs, because that's a big push coming out of the left these days, is you will eat the bugs. That's what we need to do to sustain the planet, to sustain, to combat global warming. And of course, naturally, Bronsky, talking about the important things, decides to release his own video. Whoops. Let me pull up the right one here. Decides to release his own video talking about eating the bugs. Did you get any feedback as to whether or not they can hear you before we dive into this too much?
Yes. Yeah. Human SVD said yes. So
Okay.
That's good.
So, full disclosure, I haven't actually watched Bronsky's video on it just yet, but I figure we could, experience that together. So,
Bring it on.
you
Lay it
wanna-
on me.
We're not in a sort of a shared.
I got you. I got to pull it up on my own. That is
Here,
that is gay.
I'll caption it. But here's his stream on it. So he's debunking and fact checking Leather Apron Club's
Eating
bug
bugs,
video. So
or entomophagy, if you prefer. It's been talked about a lot the past few years, but it seems that whenever it is, it's in the context of some anti-World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab hating tirade.
You will eat the bugs, and you will own the nothing.
And to understand why people feel emotional about this, it's natural to feel a personal and cultural connection to your food, and to react negatively when people say they want to take it away. What I'd like to do is bring that conversation down to earth a little bit, to evaluate the actual feasibility of making such a large-scale change to our global food production systems, and to show you without appeal to emotion or conspiracy that eating bugs just doesn't make any sense. Now let's make it clear from the start. This is not a video defending the current food system, which farm animals like chickens and fish, several, at least an acre or two ahead. So let's examine each of these claims in turn and see how true they are.
Jesus, how long does he let him talk?
However, this number was later admitted by the author to be
we have here with Leather Apron Club is someone who doesn't understand any statistics, so it's a...
Immediately, what we have here with Leather Apron Club is someone who doesn't understand statistics. Like, why is it... Let's even grant Bronski that somehow Leather Apron Club is incorrect about whatever he's talking about here. Like, why is this the hill we're going to die on? Why is this the thing we're going to punch right over? Like, and what it boils down to is Leather Apron Club kind of blew up, and I'm not knocking Leather Apron Club at all, mind you. I think that he's had some good content. There's some things I definitely disagree with him on, such as the idea that
he also has like one of the most pleasing voices I've ever heard. Like, no exaggeration.
Well, and it's like, I'll disagree with him on things like, okay, he wants to bring back the position of a literal dictator, as traditionally understood. That is a cringe LARP, but I think some of the stuff that he's done with particularly the ethnic and religious background of certain guests on certain certain YouTube channels
certain well-known shows,
is worthwhile, and he deserves the 40,000 subscribers he has. But certainly Bronski has got a little bit of penis envy in that respect. So, I mean, and I would say this directly to Bronski's face too, if he wanted to engage on the subject. But this is not worthwhile. What I suspect here is we've got somebody in Joseph Bronski who's a little bit of a clout chaser and he's not truly on our side, right? He's nominally on our side because we're sort of the dissident class that would be more open to hearing things that are not in the mainstream, right? But he's not on our side. Don't listen to a thing this guy says.
Well, as you know, a very clear marker of whether someone's on your side is, of course, when they punch right in favor of the cathedral. Right, I mean that's what every true member of the dissident right does. They harp on you for saying that the Greeks actually weren't super gay, or that eating bugs is probably bad.
Well, and to that end,
they argue that. Yeah.
Well, and to that end, and I know that not everyone is watching every single minute of my content, right? But I had a very good conversation with that Eric Orville guy, and so Bronski also took exception to Leather Apron Club's defense. Leather Apron Club's defense of the Greeks, saying that no, they weren't super gay, which is the position taken by the cathedral. And naturally, Joseph Bronski, of course, has to argue for the real, the things that really matter. He's definitely on our side, and had to talk about how the Greeks definitely were totally gay. And this Eric Arville guy, who, if you guys haven't heard of him before, check him out. He's definitely somebody who...
Yes, subscribe to him. Follow him.
He's a neurotypical guy, which is something that's
important
and in short supply on the dissident right.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of autistic spurg lords on our side of the aisle. I hate to say it. But he's a well-rounded guy. He's got some good things to say, and he absolutely just spanked Bronski. On everything he wanted to talk about with respect to homosexuality. But that's Bruce, yet another...
In the chat, Bruce Bogtrotter says Arville slapped Bronski around, and I think that's pretty accurate.
No, it was, it was embarrassing. I will say that on the things relating to genetics in the beginning, Bronski did, of course, hold his own, but that's his wheelhouse, right? That's not what... Eric does, and I think he, held his ground pretty admirably, especially when that's not what he was intending to talk about. And that's what he kept trying to circle Bronski back to, Bronski kept trying to circle him back to, is like he didn't want to talk about Greek homosexuality, particularly as it would relate to Plato's Symposium. Like, he wanted to talk about genetics and Jewishness and stuff like that, so... And there is a reason I'm being a little more careful about what we're saying today, just because YouTube has taken down at least one of my videos. So I'd rather not get my channel taken down. Like, yeah, I can go to Rumble, I can go to Odyssey or whatever, but that's kind of preaching to the choir. And one of the issues on the right, too, is we collectively are pretty lazy. And a good example of this is for those of you who are 24-year-old boomers like myself, you'll remember, now I'm drawing a blank on his name, Washington State guy. James Alsop.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Who is really popular on YouTube. I feel like he cracked 100,000 subscribers, but as soon as he got to, one day I hope to have an SPLC article, but as soon as he got kicked off of YouTube, like, everybody stopped supporting him, everybody stopped watching him, and he stopped producing content, to my knowledge at least. Maybe he's still out there shouting into the void somewhere.
Random side point. The SPLC totally changed what their website looks like. Holy cow. It used to be a lot more red. Wow, yeah, they totally got some new web designer to
I love how they've got like a this reminds me of the playing cards from the Iraq War with all the high value targets that they distributed, where they've got like extremist info.
Oh, right, yeah, like it's some sort of Pentagon report.
Playing cards. So that's why I'm trying to avoid the most wanted playing cards here. Not the Amazon thing. That's why I'm trying to avoid having that happen to me, because I don't even have close to the amount of subscribers he has, and I would just stop getting people to listen to what I'm saying. But these are the playing cards I'm talking about. During the Iraq War, they distributed these. They had they were playing cards they gave to the soldiers that had high-value targets on them, so they'd know what their faces looked like. But it just reminds me of that, so... The other thing I wanted to talk about before we sort of get into what the thumbnail alluded to here is, for those of you who were present in the Discord, both myself and Victor here got the axe, and we were exiled from Discord. So there is a good buddy of mine who definitely is not me that is still in the cool server from Ryan Falk, but unfortunately,
is that is it Mark Felt or a Deep Throat, an anonymous informant of some kind, a source, one of Seymour Hersh's sources that has relayed this to you?
So that's where we're at with it, and to that end, we have Discord does have a policy against ban evasion, so the route Victor and I sort of opted to go, especially because that server is sort of dying, is towards an app called Gilded, which is actually owned by Roblox. But it's a Discord alternative, and we've got a server set up, and Victor is going to drop a link to that in the chat if you guys want to come hang out. So,
yes, it's highly encouraged.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna
that's
drop.
That's where
Telegram is wonky as hell. I'm not gonna.
And the issue I sort of have with it is it requires that you enter like an actual live phone number. You can't spoof it, at least to my knowledge. It's beyond my technical ability to do, and it's like, I really don't want that, especially because that's how you end up getting doxxed. All it takes is for me to accidentally hit the wrong button or forget to turn off cell phone sharing, and now I got people I know in real life in the old Telegram channel or something like that. So, and people are... Even if they aren't actively sharing that information, which I don't know one way or the other, it's like people are so apprehensive about giving out their phone number because it is tied to their real life identity that, I figured that this would be the better way to go.
Yeah, strikes me as a little risky.
Well, and we do have a contingency plan if Gilded gives us the axe as well, which we would share in that event. But we've got a separate server set up. Drawing a blank on the name of it, but
it's called the Workers Anti-Racism Coalition.
No, I'm talking about the other one when we were deciding between Gilded and it's not entirely relevant. We'll cross that bridge when and if we get there. So what sort of precipitated this live stream is somebody actually posted in Ryan's Discord this screen cap from one Steven Pinker on Twitter, and he says, We're hasty to declare the brain changes in pornography users as damage when they've adapted themselves to a post-reproductive lifestyle. Read, hypergamous lifestyle. A green future requires more men to support adult performers rather than risk procreation. And that...
Risk procreation. Like, what the absolute fuck is that kind of phrase?
Well, this reminds me, too, of... that article, there's a screen cap of it that's circulating around where they're like, oh yeah, if we damage people's brains with electromagnets, they become less religious. Like they're trying to sugarcoat very real brain damage that does come from addiction to pornography. But that was just so disgusting to me to read. And it's so in the face of what we know to be true from real life. I don't know. I know you've got a lot to say on it, Victor. You're probably a little more well read on the subject than I myself am.
I've done a lot more unsavory research into this crap. Unfortunately, if we were streaming this on Odyssey, I'd have a lot more to share. But I guess in short, that the fact that Steven Pinker, of all people, and those who share a heritage with him are taking this kind of perspective, nice touch, I didn't expect that, is not a surprise to those who look into this field with a fair degree of research. I mean, maybe we'll get around to it. There's a couple articles that address the conspiracy theory about a certain ethnic group having a fair amount of power within this industry. And so, quite honestly, this is something I'll say, and this is something that happens a lot when it comes to so-called conspiracy theories of this nature, where if you just do some cursory research into it and just identify the key figures, you realize that there's actually something to it, and that you realize the slur of conspiracy theory, like many things, is just to get you to stop thinking about it. Because once you learn about this stuff, you can't unlearn it. You can't just go, okay, I just realized that performers like pornographers like Al Goldstein or Ron Jeremy, or just one name after another, are really, really influential and pivotal in this industry and how it proliferated in the United States. Well, I'm just going to shelve that information now and pretend I didn't learn it, and just not adopt my thinking in any capacity. It's like, no, you really can't. And so it's kind of hard to take seriously certain articles that are written about this subject when they're obviously from mainstream publications that try to whitewash their influence in pornography. But it's almost cringy to read some of those articles. I mean, we could do that if we have time on stream, but I mean, there's a reason they don't actually try to rebut it in any major capacity. They just hope that if they mention, oh, this association between Semitic peoples and pornography is an 8chan, 4chan QAnon conspiracy theory pushed by the Proud Boys. See, isn't it bad? Isn't it bad, guys? Don't you feel bad about knowing about this conspiracy theory? And then they don't really offer any kind of rebuttal to that. So I know I was being a little opaque there, and I'm sorry for the listeners that had to go through that, but I'm trying to be as careful as I can.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the day will come when I do get the boot from YouTube, and hopefully by then there's, some more of us hanging around so we can have more open discussions about this sort of thing. But I'm trying
we can really unleash the Henry Ford in all of us.
our inner, well, I'll just leave it at that. But so, and that's what I mean is like article after article too. It's pushed so damn hard. They want to talk about pseudo-scientific treadmills. They'll with respect to porn damaging your brain. Yet, on the other hand, they'll acknowledge that it does alter the way your brain functions. It alters your brain chemistry. So there's an awful lot of pill pull going on there.
and addiction is real too. Like even one of those articles that tries to whitewash the Semitic influence in that industry admits that addiction is a thing. There are people out there though, in the same vein as those who tried to say that nicotine wasn't addictive back in the 90s or whatever, that say that porn addiction isn't real. I mean, there are those who are trying to advocate that position. It's absolutely sickening, and it should be condemned at every turn. I remember Bill Burr on like one of his podcasts or whatever, he was asked, I don't know if he was asked a question or prompted in any way, but he was just saying that about social media and the porn industries is that they'll do what the cigarette companies do whenever studies come out that say these things are bad, they're not good for you. They'll just flood the market with these quote-unquote doctors saying that it's healthy and it's not that bad. It's the same kind of playbook that we're very familiar with. And then there are those who are very conditioned to think the best about pornography because of how liberating it is, and it breaks down traditional norms, and you're oppressive and against free speech if you want to do anything about it.
Stop
Then
clutching
they'll-
your pearls, you prude.
Yeah, yeah, you prude. Why are you obsessed with sex? Why,
Well,
why are you want to control others so much?
Let's leave to the wayside for a moment, too, the element of physiological addiction to pornography, which I would contend that there is a physiological addiction to it. I mean, in terms of dopamine getting released and all that good stuff. There's a such thing as a psychological addiction out of habit as well, in the same way that people can be addicted to food. So, but they want to talk about... And that's just it too. Is like right here. Let's read this little excerpt where it says, "What is clear is nationally, more permissive attitudes towards pornography are correlated with steep declines in rape and other kinds of violence towards women." And they've got the cathedral on their side, right? And that's one of the that's one of the big accusations that'll get leveled against certain companies, like energy drink companies, for instance. They'll say that, oh, well, they just, all this stuff you're putting in your body is terrible for you, and they just paid to have a study done. There is a real element of that, and I haven't taken the time to go through this, the International Journal of Law and Psychiatry, but it's one of those things,
Law
too,
and
unless...
psychiatry. That's funny. I would have never paired those two together, but
That's what I mean.
yeah.
That, like, just using our inductive reasoning skills, it's like, is this real? Like,
Hey, now, okay, who wrote it? Who wrote this article? I think
Milton Diamond.
I wonder if he's related to Jared Diamond in any way, or a Sarah Diamond, who has written some things about supposed Christian theocracy.
Well, he's we can probably figure out who he is from the University of Hawaii, John A. Burns School of Medicine. So let's do an old early life check. Milton.
Probably doesn't have a Wiki. Oh, he actually does have a Wikipedia page. His physiognomy does not lie.
Yeah, I immediately saw in the thumbnail. I was like, oh boy. Let's see.
See, you do a Control F, it doesn't come up with anything, but our eyes cannot deceive us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's anything that might sort of hint towards a particular...
Oh, on Wikipedia, he's best known for following up on the case of David Reamer. A boy raises a girl under the supervision of John Money. What does he mean by following up on the case? I guess he studied him? Is that it?
Well, I mean, City College of... Let's figure out who this was. It's a Canadian man born as a male but raised as a girl following medical advice and intervention after his penis was severely injured during a botched circumcision and... Jeez!
Well, that was John Money. You know who John Money is, right?
No, I do not.
Oh, Christ, you live under a rock. You must be working too much.
That's precisely
Everyone
what
in
it
this,
is. Well, I did just spend the last 2 months in bunker in London, but...
You did, actually, yeah. But, I mean, everyone in this chat probably already knows who John Money is. He's a sick, perverted SOB who did some very, very sick, perverted, degenerate experiments on 2 children, right? It was a twin set, I believe. Yeah, identical twin boys. There you go.
Diamond. Tel Aviv. Well, it says Milton in and of itself is a name that belongs to a particular tribe, so...
Yeah, Milton Friedman also has that name as well.
Yeah, a rare diamond. He's probably not popular enough for people to actually care about his early life anyhow, but... I mean, come on.
So now that we know this, you can go back to the thing you were looking over.
So let's just let's just start with the abstract. We'll just read the abstract. A vocal segment of the population has serious concerns about the effect of pornography in society. That's not the way you start a scientific research paper, like one that is actually grounded in science with you're caring about a vocal segment of the population and their serious concerns. So already that's telling me you've it's a little more than a hypothesis you have going into this. And challenges its public use and acceptance. This manuscript. It's not even a study, it's a manuscript.
Wait, oh God. Well, I mean, so it could be the journal or publication found it and decided to publish it. But it's very important to know that this is not some kind of disinterested article that he spent 5 years painstakingly researched and just happened to come up with these findings. This is probably like a tract or a screed that he wrote, and then this journal's like, let's publish this.
Like, not only is this an appeal to authority, which well, I mean, everybody here is probably skeptical of authority in this day and age, but it's an appeal to inappropriate authority. It's like, okay, he's in the Department of Anatomy and Biochemistry, but we know his background is sex professor. Like, it's not like he's an expert researcher on brain chemistry, and no, like he goes and talks about, fucking masturbation in classes to college students. That's what he does. So, all right, continuing on. The manuscript reviews the major issues associated with the availability of sexually explicit material. It has been found everywhere. It was scientifically investigated that as pornography has increased in availability, sex crimes have either decreased or not increased. That's not... Have you ever watched the TV show House, Victor?
Yes, I have. It's a very good show.
Let me see if I can find a particular... Well, it's not entirely relevant, but he's in this lecture hall, right? And there's a lecturer there who's talking about his...
Oh, no, yeah, I know that one. Oh, that's one of my favorite clips. That's a great one.
He's talking about, this miracle medicine that supposedly prevents cancer. And House is, of course... he's in the lecture hall and he sees somebody sitting in front of him and he goes, "Excuse me, do you have cancer?" She goes, "No." "What are you drinking there?" "Mango juice." "Well, there you have it. Mango juice prevents cancer." Like, that is not a logical leap you can take. Because it didn't increase, it's not bad. There's further
I wonder if he delves further into actually, I don't know if.
And I would like to point out that whoever wrote this article here, Christopher J. Ferguson, he's intentionally misrepresenting what's even in here. He's like, what's clear is that cross-nationally, this is what's linked. Cross-nationally, more permissive attitudes towards pornography are correlated with steep declines in rape and other kinds of violence, which is not what he says. This is not even what, the sex doctor has to say. He says, I have decreased or not increased. It's not as though that this is, even by his own admission, unique across the board.
I feel like the abstract would have said something like steep decline. It would have had that kind of language in there. I feel like severity.
I feel like if it were statistically significant, they'd be using a number. You know what I mean? Like they would say,
I wonder if there's even a single number in here. Oh, look at all those citations though. McCormick 94.
And that's what's so painful about stuff like this, and that's why I'm inherently skeptical of, do you have a study to back that up? Is it's like, in order to properly vet a study, you have to invest so much time. Like in the way Sean Last talks about going through it is like, okay, you read the abstract, you read the conclusion, and you sort of skim and scan to try and come to, because that's the only way you can reasonably sift through all this stuff to try and determine validity.
Then you take a matrix thumb drive and then plug it into a port in your brain and learn 3 years of statistics, and then you can read all this stuff.
So I'm inherently skeptical because just as Christopher J. Ferguson here is intentionally misrepresenting what is said in good old Mr. Diamond's, paper here, which is sort of represented as a study. I'm certain that they're standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, with all this peer-reviewed, circle-jerky research, where one guy is slightly misrepresenting the other over and over again, ad infinitum, until we get to the point where poor and good, guy. So let's see if we can find some actual numbers. Revenues from phone sex alone are thought to exceed 1 billion. That can't still be the case. That's from 2006. I mean, I guess that would probably translate over to like OnlyFans and other e-thottery.
Oh yeah, it's just moved to another pile.
Cross-national research. It has dismissed the scientific evidence in favor of protecting the public good against forces that might denigrate and devalue human persons. And that's the other side of the coin, too, is like, they'll talk about how dehumanizing it is to work in sex work, but they do it voluntarily, and, like, there's no way you can win. But let's see. Juveniles committed 33%, I wonder which juveniles. Committed 33% of the rapes in 1972, but only 18% of those committed in 1995. I don't know what that proves other than boomers are just more rapey.
Like that's one inference, yeah.
National Police
Sense
Academy
of
records rate
assault
of
also decreased. The rate of conviction for rape increased markedly from 85% in 1972 to 95% in 1990. So,
well, there's a reason post hoc ad proctor hoc is a logical fallacy here. Like, even if this were the case, right? Even if we can draw, sort of parallels between a decline in the amount of rape since the 1970s, that doesn't mean that the proliferation of porn is responsible for it. It could be, hey, the war on drugs happened, and I would hazard a guess that people who are on drugs who would otherwise be on the streets are probably a little more likely to get rapey. Or you could say that there's been a marked decline in testosterone, which is a real thing, and sperm counts, and that is, I'm certain, playing into it. Porn up, rape down. Yeah, that. I mean, this is fallacious reasoning.
The early 90s crime wave where everything was really bad, and then there's the ensuing war on drugs and the crime bill that Biden is so famous for. Obviously, you throw away a lot of the potential criminals into a jail cell. So, do you think that'll lower the rape rate in any possible way?
There was no evidence of any negative impact seeing X-rated videos, and in fact, those who did not see an X-rated movie were clearly not champions of gender equality. And one thing that's important to note, too, and I don't know when this paper itself was published. I want to say it said 2009. Yeah, I think it did. 2009. So, again, like, in 2009, people were going into the back of a Blockbuster or the Family Video to go rent, a porn VHS or DVD.
Yeah.
Pornography was not.
It's not as
to that degree. Like now,
everybody you have these portals from hell on your phone that will take you literally anywhere for all of eternity.
Yeah, that's exactly what a cell phone is too, is a portal to hell.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't take credit for that phrase. It was Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire coined that term. It's very apt. Or as Russell Brand said, he's an ex-porn addict, said that everybody has these icebergs of filth floating around in their Wi-Fi connections.
Right.
Technically, in a way, it's there even when you don't access it.
But it's like, and look how many studies. I'm even skeptical that this dude read all of these. Look how many different studies are cited. We have to go through and let's look at sample sizes. Let's look at. I'm just highly skeptical of stuff coming out of the cathedral like that. So let's.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anyone, I'm sure this crew knows all about the replication failure of most studies in general.
Well, some might not, because I feel like Sean Last is the only one who really talks about that. Even Ryan Falk doesn't mention it as much. Why don't you enlighten our audience?
Oh, I don't have the specific reference for it, but there's at least a couple mainstream articles I found where they've had a lot of trouble, like just replicating most, if not all, studies. Let me see what I got in my reservoir. Oh, for God's sake, where is it?
Finn Wraith, nice to see you back, by the way, as well as you, Human SVD. Glad to have the support. Says that sex work is voluntary, but people that do sex work often resort to it out of desperation. I mean, I'm disinclined to agree with that. I'm not saying that has never happened ever, where there was some, poor widow of a soldier who died at Verdun who was forced to, become a prostitute to support. Like, I'm sure that's happened in some instances, right? But modern e-thottery is just because it's an easy way to make money. Like, especially now that women are in the workforce and they have been properly liberated so that they can go make, Shlomo Goldfinkel Bergstein a bunch more money. Now they're realizing that, hey, actually work sucks, and they have so devalued. Like there's article after article or Instagram post after Instagram post about like some 19-year-old, OnlyFans skank who's like got a $2 million house, because they made a bunch of money off of that. Like, that's not desperation.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was
another one I saw on this podcast too. Apparently made like $3.5 million a year, like just OnlyFans alone. Like, just absolutely appalling amounts of money. I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase that women who are like vaguely attractive, a 6 or higher, basically live life on easy mode, where they can just have absolutely no skills or any kind of marketable talent, but by simply existing and keeping up their figure a little bit, access pretty much any path to wealth in that way, if they're willing to debase themselves. Then...
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like, you're trying to tell me that, especially among those on the dissident right, like, there is not somebody out there who's willing to make you a stay-at-home mom. Like, that, there's no, I don't. Especially with nobody is starving here in the United States. Nobody is quite literally destitute. Like, the social welfare programs have seen to that, or at least I certainly hope so, given how much of my paycheck goes to the federal government every pay period. But this might be a little interesting to look at too, how they sort of marry this with feminism and women's perceptions, because it quite frankly did have to pivot from what was the common perception of feminists in that period of the say 2010-ish, is that was what feminists were saying is, oh, men are pigs. That's when the whole I'm not even saying that it even really happened, but you can't catcall was a huge thing. They had to quite frankly do a 180 on that. So,
well, what happened with that, this I think I have a little bit of knowledge about, is around 1991, there was a piece of legislation. It was an attempted bill that was never voted on, called Pornography Victim Compensation Act, which was some kind of vague anti-porn measure. And what happened is there was an open letter signed by a bunch of people called Feminists for Free Expression. And a lot of the signatories were a bunch of white feminists of a certain variety that basically killed any semblance of addressing that sort of thing.
Well, let's take a look at Feminists for Free Okay, so...
Yeah, DuckDuckGo cock-blocked any access to that. Let me try... pornography victims compensation.
Okay, let's take a look at it. I think I found it. Is this... It's from jury finds former college president personally liable for $50,000 in victory for student rights. Is this it? No.
No, it's a Wikipedia page. I'll send that right to you.
Okay. Yeah, we can look at this guy's ugly mug. All right. Man. Mitch McConnell is just unfortunate looking.
The sea turtle, as he is known.
Yeah.
If you go to 1991 bill, see, support opponents included Feminists for Free Expression. Now, see, it's red, which means there's no Wikipedia page. And then I looked through every name. Yeah, I looked through every name that was given here. Obviously, I couldn't look at the 172 others. But the ones that Wikipedia thought was important enough to feature. I got what? The ones that I had access to, that's 6, 9, 12 names. Okay, 9 of those 12 names were Semitic. So a bit of a...
I hate how academic stuff is behind a paywall, too. That should be illegal.
I mean, it is terrible. It is terrible. That's what Sci-Hub is for. Like, the creator of Sci-Hub made it to I think that person's like some kind of socialist or Marxist. It's about the freedom of information. I agree with that because the amount of money they ask for it too. I was thinking about this the other day. Like they asked for $35 or $45 for an article, for like a 20-page article. Do you know how many used books I could get for that much money? That
Right.
probably have more content than that article alone. It's absolute dreck. It's hogwash.
Especially if they're
Or,
not
rubbish.
including as part of that purchase all of the cited reference material, because you're telling me that if I've got to go look through this and if I want to verify what you're saying is true, like I got to go pay another $40 to go see.
Yeah, that's what's implied. Yeah.
Oh, this could be.
They have like.
Not to cut you off, but it says.
Go ahead.
The serial murderer Ted Bundy who attributed his killings partly to porn, which I was not aware of. I was not aware, but I absolutely
That's
believe
interesting.
it. I absolutely believe
I
it.
buy it. Sure.
So, yeah, I don't want to click on that link. That's how I actually go to the basement of a federal building somewhere. Oh boy.
Right.
Well, let's control F for pornography here. Here's what Ted Bundy says. My experience with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality is once you become addicted to it, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material until you reach a point where the pornography only goes so far, where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it would give that which is beyond just reading or looking at it. Violence in the media, he said, particularly sexualized violence, sent boys down the road to being Ted Bundys. The FBI, he suggested, should stake out adult movie houses and follow patrons as they leave. You're going to kill me, he said, and that will protect society from me. But there are many, many more people who are addicted to pornography, and you are doing nothing about it. This is coming from Ted. What reason does Ted Bundy have?
That is shocking to me.
This seems like as much genuine contrition as a serial killer can have. You know this.
Oh, I know. He is fessing up very strongly here. I mean, the devil's advocate in my mind is like, is he trolling, or did someone turn him in some way? Like, I don't see that as plausible.
Well, Nelson was apparently convinced that Bundy's concern was genuine. Most biographers, researchers, and other observers have concluded that his sudden condemnation of pornography was one last manipulative attempt to shift blame by catering to Dobson's agenda as a longtime pornography critic. That seems like complete bunk. What was he hoping to obtain from that? They were going to kill him. Like that was fait accompli.
Right.
Like,
True.
and this is the bias of whatever Wikipedia editor did that. Like,
Yes.
whatever
Oh, yeah.
porn addicted Wikipedia editor is editing this page.
Like, oh, well, what happened is he talked to someone who's not in the cathedral, which is already a bad thing. And then we cited a bunch of cathedral people, and they said that he was wrong, or it was not genuine.
Well, and
So get bodied.
how would he have even known that Dobson's agenda? Dobson was a longtime porn critic. I don't know I don't even know who that guy is, but that was likely not common knowledge to a dude who was pretty fixated on, doing some nasty things to people. The problem wasn't pornography. The problem was Bundy. I wish I could believe that his motives were altruistic. That's what I mean. And they go on at length to, I bet you sooner or later, like if I were to archive this page and come back like 3 years from now, I bet you this excerpt is removed. If I had to guess.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
let's take a look at other prominent serial killers as well, because, or even prominent trannies like Chris Chan. You think they're not addicted to pornography?
Oh.
Let's take a look at
I mean,
who's the guy from Milwaukee who killed and eats
Dahmer?
people? Yeah.
It was Dahmer. I believe that.
Let's control F for. Hey, looks like Eric Orville a little bit, or Arville. Oops, that's not what I wanted.
I didn't find anything
Dahmer's
Wikipedia
father
page.
observed this box at Dahmer's grandmother's house. When he asked Dahmer to open the box, Dahmer became defensive and angry, claiming the box contained pornographic magazines and stating, "Can't I just have 1 square foot of privacy?"
Well,
He's
apparently
then-
what was actually in the box, if you go up, is it was the body parts of someone he killed. That was what was actually in the box, and he lied about.
Okay,
having
but he
porn
is
in
he is
there.
clearly like consuming pornography, and I'm not trying to say that
I don't know if you can infer that.
that was causal, but Edwards noted nude male posters on the wall in the videotape. Yeah. So let's take a look at Chris Chan. I bet you he has a Wikipedia page. No? That's shocking.
Oh, there's a Reddit that says, "Why does Chris not have a Wikipedia page?" from 2020. Little Reddit post.
Sonichu.
Yeah, so Wikipedia is a page on nearly every village in the world. Chris Chan being obscure does not invalidate his ability to obtain a Wikipedia page. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. And if they have one for Milton Diamond, but they don't have one for Chris Chan, I don't quite get that.
Yeah, Chris seemingly basing his stance on studying women in porn and anime. Who's another prominent tranny? Let's Bruce Jenner. I bet you that would be a good one.
That's not his actual name anymore.
Yikes. Yikes. Porn. No phrase is found. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything either. Who's another prominent? Give me another prominent serial killer, chat. Let's go test our gut instinct.
What about John Wayne Gacy?
John Wayne. I love how he comes up before the actual John Wayne.
That's interesting. Okay,
Yep,
so
here we go.
Waterloo Jason.
We're deeply involved
joined
in
the
wife
local-
swapping, prostitution, pornography, and drug use.
Who the hell are the Jaycees? What in the world? Local Jaycees chapter.
I
That's the
do
most
not
random
know.
thing. Oh, the local Jaycees, as if they're everywhere.
He also Gacy
not-
bringing teen boys into his garage in the early hours, and also found gay pornography and men's and men's wallets. 7 pornographic films were found in the search warrant. Chicago is the center of national child pornography ring. John Wayne Gacy. So, I mean, it seems to be that, you know, people who are committing sexually explicit crimes, there's always a tie-in to pornography. And again, I think that that statement by Bundy is pretty damning as well.
Yeah, assuming it hasn't been like discredited in the minds of most people, because obviously the cathedral ran interference for his statements. You know, he
Right.
committed wrong things. We had to discredit it in some way.
I'm surprised nobody's
there's another
taken that
dude-
angle on their Substack either. Like, tried to tie a correlation, or at least nobody that I know of, tie a correlation between, deviants like transvestites and serial killers as
Yeah.
well, and the whole pornography movement. Let's take a look.
Well, you know what would be actually worth someone like Joseph Bronsky's time is if he looked into something like that. But no, it's got to be about sociology and why you should eat the bugs and why the Jews are smart and why the Greeks were super gay and why Leather Apron Club shouldn't have as many subscribers as I do.
Well, and that's what I mean is he's not a guy who lives... I want to make it clear that he's not a guy who lives rent-free in our heads, right? It's just... Like, when we talk about the right being way too fractious and being completely unable to get anything
It's just
done...
so emblematic. Just so emblematic of that.
Like, he's the Pied Piper of smartest man in the room, Spurgs, you know, who could actually do something useful for the dissident right, but instead we want to, like, go yell at somebody because they're not mirror images of what we believe ideologically.
Right.
Jesus. Okay, that's not what I wanted.
Also looking up a dude. It's from a Jim Can't Swim channel. You may or may not have heard of that channel, but it was.
I promise you, I can swim.
That's right, Mr. Dewey. A guy named Michael Rafferty, who abducted, raped, and killed an 8 or 9-year-old girl, and apparently he consumed child pornography before doing so. I'm trying to find official proof of that, but I'm sure people could check out the interrogation video that Jim Can't Swim commented on.
I'm trying to find... Okay. So this might be an interesting article to look at because this is a concept I haven't heard of before. That was coined by the Frankfurt School philosopher, here. So maybe while you're looking into that, I'll talk about repressive desublimation. Desublimation, jeez.
That already sounds stupid. Good God.
Yeah, that already sounds pseudoscientific. Oops. Is a term first coined by Frankfurt School philosopher and sociologist Herbert Marcuse. Why have I heard of that name before?
Because he is a member of the Frankfurt School, and he is an influential Semite in that field of study.
In his 1964 work, man, so he must have made it to the United States. That refers to the way in which, in advanced industrial society, the progress of technological rationality is liquidating the oppositional and transcending elements in the higher culture. Man, that was like, was he sitting there with a thesaurus? Like, why? I don't get why they write, and like, obviously that's comprehensible, but
I mean, barely.
You're trying to
barely.
sound smart, is what it is,
and you're trying to hide something,
right?
Because there's actually a very good article that we could go over sometime, written by Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs. He's a very far-left guy. But he has a very good article that breaks down just the absolute retardation of how academics write, especially these kinds of academics, and how it's basically impossible to understand what they're saying. If you were to at least pick up like some kind of biochemistry journal or something and start reading, I have no idea what it's saying, but you could at least take a paragraph and just kind of start breaking it down, decoding, and translate what each term means. Because if you find a term, you can just look somewhere else and go, okay, so this is what this Latin phrase means, or this is what this little process is referring to. And over time, you can actually understand the paragraph. But if you take excerpts from bilge like this, there's just absolutely no guarantee or certainty that you'll get to the bottom of it. Because they're constantly redefining what words are, and they're shifting them around, and they're using it in all these vague ways.
And if I'm an academic, right, and I feel that I've got this groundbreaking theory, I'm going to want to ensure that this is able to be commonly understood, right? Especially if it is groundbreaking, like, you can't couch it in, like, terms you just made up. Because you're never going to get anywhere with it, other than by people who also want to feel smart and want to be able to parrot that back. But continuing on, all right, what did you have to say?
Oh, it's nothing. Go ahead.
In other words, where art was previously a way to represent that which is from that which is not, capitalist society causes the flattening out of art into a commodity, incorporated into society itself. Why did this come up? For what I was looking. Okay. For today, repression operates through the desublimation of desire, wherein no desires are forced underground, therein eliminating forms of critical distance from society. For example, see the acceptance of pornography, sex work, drug culture, BDSM, furries, gay culture, lavish living, trans culture. Were furries a thing in 1960s?
This could be analysis, I think.
Yeah. And the like which are no longer seen by society as negative or pernicious lifestyles. The pursuit of these is now sanctioned and celebrated, meaning being a member of these types of forms of life is no longer a subversive action or lifestyle. Well, it certainly is. But in fact has been commodified. The idea will be picked up. Yeah, that was analysis. I'm just retarded is what it is. The world is no longer perceived as hostile. So, but I mean, these are the people who are theorizing of this sort of stuff. And like the Frankfurt School, for those of you who don't know, is where a lot of this degeneracy comes from. Like, they want to talk about the neon, or the not the neon Yazis, the Nazi book burnings. I'm just so used to reverting to neon Nazi. What were they burning?
Were those? Yeah.
You know,
what exactly were they burning? They don't really address that very often.
But even and these were the people who were tied into the attempted communist, the attempted. Yeah, it says right here, the scholars were especially influenced by the communist failed German Revolution of 1918 to 1919. So they're tied in with this. Like, these are the people in the same circles who are pushing this degeneracy. They're as the anti-intellectual, and that's the thing too, is they want to couch this degeneracy as a form of intellectualism. True intellectuals are appreciators of pornography, as the anti-intellectual threat of Nazism increased to political violence.
Well, another way to code that is it's Grug striking back in a way.
Right.
Against the degenerate tyranny of those trying to impose this on them. And then Grug, which decided to wake up in this case, and would if you went anywhere else in the world as well, and said, no, we're not putting up with this shit.
Well, and if you want to know, like, how the institutions in the United States, the educational institutions in the United States got to be the way they are, because when these institutions were founded, they weren't like shitlib factories in the way they were today. In 1935, where the Frankfurt School joined Columbia University here in the United States. So after they got ousted, after good old Uncle Adolf Bad Mustache Man came to power, the Institute moved from Frankfurt to Geneva to New York City and joined Columbia University, which is really, again, where all this stuff came from. So,
but Hitler was a leftist. He was a leftist Marxist, don't you know? As boomers like to say.
Socialism.
He was a socialist. As if it's impossible to ever negotiate the boundary between something resembling socialistic economics and right-wing ethnic interests. As if you cannot bridge that. If you want to be pro your race, you have to also be a capitalist if you're white.
Well, and that's the thing. There's an element of that on the right as just as much as there is on the left, like where the right will slander the term socialism without being able to properly articulate what that word means. And I think
right.
I don't want to get terribly spicy, but there is a quote from our late Uncle Adolf on his definition of socialism versus how it was understood by people left of center. So, all right.
I'll remind you to point me in that direction, though, because I want to remember that.
Yeah. Just type up a little note, and I'll we'll have to dig into that. But so I know. So we sort of talked about drawing our own little inductive conclusions about why porn bad, because it's associated with all these known bad actors, right? But I know, again, you have had the time and have done a little more actual research into it. Do you have, Victor, any scholarly articles or articles which reference scholarly information to sort of just really note the negative effects of pornography on the human mind and human psyche?
I do, thankfully, from a good lad that everyone who is still watching at this point should follow, a man named Thultide, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, has what I think should be called the master article on this kind of subject, where he, like the ultimate porn bad article. Have sent your way, Mr. Dewey.
All right.
It's pretty encompassing. It has a bunch of pictures on there too. But and then if that article's not enough, of course, you could probably just go to Fighting the New Drug, or is it fightthenewdrug.com, which I'm sure could be regarded as a biased organization. It's like, well, yes, if it disagrees with porn, then it's going to be a biased organization.
That's like what Ryan Falk will even say about people who will level the slander of he's a racist at him is like, who else would tell you these things but somebody who would be labeled a racist? Like,
exactly right. And the funny thing is, and also like to kind of build on that, the idea that well, you're not a credentialed expert, you can't talk about it anyways. It's like, well, okay, even if a credentialed expert did tell you this, you still wouldn't believe what they said. You would still call them a hack or some kind of paid shill or some biased expert. So I mean, those are just dumb heuristics that let you know that they're never ever going to take what you say seriously.
So we'll just cover this too, because maybe there's somebody in the audience who needs to hear some of this stuff. Pornography and nofap, everything you need to know. Negative effects of porn. Health, relationship. Okay, this is not. So the average age that most people first see pornography is 11 years old. That is disgusting. That alone should be a reason
that alone, yes. That should be some kind of sign to anyone who's like, there's no such thing as porn addiction. Masturbation is completely and totally fine. They have to at least answer for that. Like, you have to be like a Vosh level sack of shit if you don't see anything wrong with that.
A third of internet downloads in the U.S. are related to porn. Now, obviously,
I mean, the internet's kind of always been that way. It's kind of always been that way.
This is the operative term here that makes me sort of question said statistic. But even consider, like, who is downloading porn? Right? Like, who is...
You can just stream it, right? There's sites like YouTube that you go to, as like Pornhub or others. You're not downloading this stuff. You're not putting it on a thumb drive and gathering a bunch of thumb drives of what you've downloaded. Like, again, this is not like some kind of mid-90s broadband connection or dial-up modem that you have to get ready each time.
So remember those statistics because you're going to learn. Oh, as of 2017, children under the age of 10 make up 22% of online porn consumption for under 18s. Now, again, this combined with this makes it a less relevant statistic because, okay, how many under 18s are watching pornography to begin with?
Right.
But that's still concerning that this number right here isn't zero.
Right. Any at all. The fact that any at all is utterly appalling.
How many children need to see porn before you're willing to support reasonable porn control?
Exactly. My God.
11 years old. Most statistics on pornography say the average age of child's first. Okay, so that would really chap Bronski's ass right here. I'm sure he would just as soon release a live stream debunking us on why porn good.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Well, and this is a thing people need to ask themselves as well: is how do you know if you're addicted? If you tell yourself things like "I can quit anytime I want," I just don't want to, or if you try to quit and fail after 2 or 3 days, or if you can't go longer than 1 or 2 weeks without watching porn or fapping, the internet and mainstream media will tell you that you are only addicted if you watch porn in situations like at work or in the public. Bullshit. That's extreme addiction. Yeah, I mean, that's just like saying, well, if you don't drink at work, you're not an alcoholic.
Yeah, if you don't snort coke at work, then you're not addicted.
Going by this measure, if you can't even go 3 weeks without watching porn or fapping, then you are an addict. The psychological effects. Now, again, I wish this was a little more linked statistic heavy, but this is also from a Twitter thread, so... porn addicts regularly suffer from anxiety, depression, social awkwardness. I think that's a big one. I think this is a huge component of, like, the rise in incel-ism. Like, obviously there are other factors here that are probably larger, such as, like, a trend towards hypergamy and what feminism did to the idea of, like, nuclear family units and so on and so forth. Lack of motivation, lack of energy, headaches, poor memory, foggy brain, inability to talk to women. That seems about right to me as well. Erectile dysfunction. I have heard, like, women say too, like, oh yeah, I once dated this guy and he said he couldn't do it with me unless we put on porn. Like, that's how fucked in the head some people are. Like, they can't even get it up unless they've got, like, some crazy degenerate shit.
Because the association is being made, of course. Like, if they're being stimulated in that way, then like that becomes your only way, right? Your only means of doing so. That seems plausible to me. If you constantly make this association with it. Mentally.
Right, negative impacts on intimate relationships too, because sort of to parrot what, you know, old feminists used to say before they were all on board with that sort of degeneracy is like, yeah, it sort of gives you, I don't think the correct term here is unrealistic expectations of what women look like, but certainly you're getting it up to people in the 90th percentile and above, so to speak, of how people look, and that's gonna just fuck you in the head.
Well, sure, but in the regrettable, you know, infectious pornification of the process, like it's getting warped and inserted into the brains of young people before they've even consummated in any way with any other person.
Right. Well, and this
like there's no way that's a good effect on anything. Like there's the quote about intimate scenes from TV shows and movies on how learning sex through watching that is like learning how to drive by watching a car chase scene, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just
right. So
utterly absurd.
And let's take a look at some of these scientific studies as well that they linked, because this is, you know, important information as well to take a look at. So, we'll just take a look at the abstract here. Sensation seeking is a personality trait that refers to individual differences in motivation for intense and unusual sensory experience. I would just like to point out that this abstract does not start out with something to the effect of, people don't like this thing and they say that it's super bad.
Right.
It describes a facet of human behavior that has direct relevance for several psychopathologies associated with high social cost. Here we first review ways of measuring SS behavior in both humans and animals. We then present convergent evidence that implicates dopaminergic neurotransmission, particularly via D2 type receptors, and individual differences in SS trait. Both high tonic dopamine levels and hyperreactive midbrain dopaminergic responses to signals of forthcoming reward are evident in higher sensations seekers. We propose that the differences in the efficacy of striatal, good lord, dopaminergic. This is what I mean about, you know, sort of couching stuff in academic terminology. Dopaminergic transmission may result in differential expression of approach avoidance reactions to same intensity stimuli. This constitutes a quantitative trait of intensity preference for sensory stimulation that may underlie core features of the SS personality. We review the evidence that high trait SS is a vulnerability factor for psychopathologies related to changes in brain dopamine function, in particular substance and gambling addiction. So read pornography addiction here. So long and short of it is changes in brain dopamine function from substance addiction, namely pornography here. So let's see if we can pull some statistics from. And again, they're talking about experience seeking, disinhibition, boredom susceptibility. Novelty preference. Operant sensation.
I mean, the funny thing that Ted Bundy was talking about seemed true to me, regardless of what you think about its earnestness, its earnesty, where it's just a textbook quality of addiction, where you just treat yourself to more and more severe or shocking or extreme forms of the substance because it's getting old. It's not having the same effect it does. Your body, rather pathologically, likes to get used to things.
And this study here is talking about how, porn addiction is a stronger craving than, meth addiction, apparently, which is something I'm a little skeptical of, but let's take a look here. I mean, they've got, some fMRI, or, that's not an fMRI, but that's just a, so the abstract here is, or let's start with the title. Craving responses to methamphetamine and sexual visual cues in individuals with methamphetamine use disorder after long-term drug rehabilitation. Studies utilize... Yeah, it is an fMRI. Cue reactive paradigms have demonstrated that short-term, abstinent, or current methamphetamine users have increased brain activity in the ventral striatum. This is not what we need. The results showed that when compared with controls, individuals with MA use disorder displayed elevated activity in the bilateral medial prefrontal cortex, the right lateral posterior... This is not relating to pornography at all. Libido brain response. Libido sexual demand. That's interesting. That's a little concerning, though. Unless you're seeing something that I'm not.
The results showed when compared with controls. In the title of the article, it says sexual visual cues.
Yeah, but it's relating to methamphetamine use in individuals with methamphetamine use disorder. I wish you would...
I like how they call it methamphetamine use disorder when I think
it's just
the
addiction.
colloquial term is just meth addiction.
Well, let's just take a look at measurable brain damage. That's got to be a little more concrete. Brain structure and function connectivity associated with pornography consumption. The brain on porn. This is your brain. In a study conducted at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin, Germany, 64 healthy male adults covering a wide range of pornography consumption reported hours of pornography consumption per week. Pornography consumption was associated with neural structure, task-related activation, and functional resting state connectivity. Gray matter volume of the brain was measured by voxel-based morphometry. Jeez.
I don't envy what you're doing right now.
Resting state functional connectivity was measured on 3T magnetic resonance imaging scans. We found a significant negative association between reported pornography hours per week and gray matter volume, as well as functional activity during sexual cue reactivity paradigm in the left putamen. Functional connectivity in there. So yeah, it's linked to a lot less gray matter. Let's take a look at this one as well. In before, discard everything I said because I mispronounced a word. Compulsive sexual behaviors are relatively common and associated with significant personal and social dysfunction. The underlying neurobiology is still poorly understood. CSB subjects showed greater left amygdala gray matter volumes, small volume corrected, and reduced resting state functional connectivity between the left amygdala seed and bilateral dorsolateral prefrontal cortex compared with HV. Conclusions: CSB, compulsive sexual behaviors, that is, porn addiction, is associated with elevated volumes in limbic regions relevant to motivational salience and emotional processing, and impaired functional connectivity between prefrontal cortical control regulatory and limbic regions. Future studies should aim to assess longitudinal measures to investigate whether these findings are risk factors that predate the onset of the behaviors or are consequences of the behaviors. So, yeah, I mean, you're damaging your brain by in terms of gray matter by being addicted to pornography. Let's talk about hormones. It takes 7 days for testosterone levels to recover from one FAP. After 7 days, your T begins to stabilize at its normal level. However, if you FAP regularly, your normal level of T may be bottomed out, but you can increase it. So this is just a handy little chart to... Let's take a look at that information. While a majority of undergraduates say they masturbate at least once per week, there were no differences across subgroups. Males, juniors, seniors, non-athletes, bisexuals, and homosexuals report masturbating more frequently than other students. So testosterone and muscle gain, that's probably correlated. Stress. To be blunt, this is extremely harmful bullshit propaganda. So I think we've sort of established that there is at least significant evidence to substantiate the claim that porn bad.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's also a pervasive myth that you just need to blow off some steam. You need to pleasure yourself to blow off all that steam. And it's, given what is said here, that could potentially be a really damaging thing to actually take to heart in any real capacity.
Well, and I mean,
it's misinformation or disinformation, you could say.
And that's what I mean is, like, this is the type of person right here that is telling you porn ain't bad. This is the type of materialistic cocksucker that is telling you. It's people on Reddit, people who would browse Reddit are telling you that porn good. So, how long have we been streaming for? So
hour 17.
I don't want to sort of draw this on too long here, but
well, when in doubt, watch a video.
Right.
People tend to enjoy that a little bit more.
Did you have one in mind here?
I thought it's the one I sent you. The archive.org. Not the archive.ph, it's the archive.org.
You want to just repost it? I can't seem to find it here.
Okay.
Because they're both archive.ph. But that doesn't want to play nice with Watch Together, just FYI. But we can...
Let's see if this works.
Where is this?
And if it doesn't work,
where is the source material from this? The what was archived? Because that'll probably play a little nicer with Watch Together.
Oh, this is the closest I've got because I heard of this through a BitChute video.
Okay, well,
and of course, BitChute links are very unreliable. So this is the closest I've got to something that'll play reliably.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you'll just have to sort of. I mean, you've seen it. It just doesn't want to work with Watch Together, so.
Oh, it won't.
No, it will not. It keeps trying to open like a new tab every time I do it because I pulled this up earlier with the intent to.
It doesn't.
Are you in? Are you in? No, it doesn't.
I'm not in the Watch Together.
I sent you a link to it, but.
Right. Yeah, and it made me like get some kind of browser extension. Okay, I'm in now. Okay, open. Yeah, then it opens a separate window. That is weird. Okay, let me try another URL. Maybe there's a BitChute link that'll work better. Because you decided to not let this work. This is your fault, you see.
It sure is.
Okay, how about this?
Link video. This provides an external... Yeah, nothing is streamed to other room members.
So, I guess it must be a YouTube video then. Oh, see, I click there, and then it can be Vimeo, or TikTok, or Twitter. Direct link. Okay, try pasting a direct link.
Here, you want to throw it in the...
Wait, I did send it to you.
Oh, okay.
Link.
Yep. I see that now.
I'll put it in the chat, so maybe the few loyal people who are here could access it as well.
Oh, come on now. Just do it this way. Certainly BitChute would work, I would think.
Watch Together defaults that it's a YouTube link, but if you click on the YouTube icon that's right to the left of the search bar, it gives you other options. What does it mean by direct link? It's a direct HTTPS link to a video or audio file. You been able to see that?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, I see every mainstream... Yeah, here. Paste a direct link. Paste. Go. Yeah, I don't... I mean, screen share is an option, but that's not really what we need.
That not work for the people attempting to watch us faithfully?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, we can do it this
Weird.
way. We'll start at 0 and just 3, 2, 1, play.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yes.
got to queue
Yeah,
up.
because it's showing. Yeah, I have it.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, play.
Let's start with, I think, Mike, maybe you're the best one for this. Maybe the background of Jews and the adult entertainment industry, either from the filmmaking perspective, management perspective, active perspective, viewing perspective. Share.
I don't get why they're laughing.
Sure, this isn't one you want to take?
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on it.
Here.
Jews in the adult industry, there's a lot of them. It was pretty much founded by the adult industry, or I'm sorry, the Jews. I had a couple beers. The adult industry was pretty much founded by the Jews.
Pause right here. From by their own admission, it was founded by the Jews. These are Jewish people. Look at, you can see his little yarmulke.
Yes, they are.
You know, he is. They are not
Yeah, the
ashamed
guy-
about this. They are seemingly proud of it. This is not some sort of slur or slander. This isn't a libel. You know, this isn't a form of blood libel.
This is what we call. I think it's in the link I sent you, where it's called a parallax, or it's what's it exactly? The celebration parallax, which is defined as the same fact pattern is either true and glorious or false and evil, depending on who says it.
Just like demographic replacement.
Exactly. No, that's the point that the article I got it from makes, where the same kind of facts are either awful or good depending on who says it. So, yeah, there you go right there. Yeah, he says it. This guy's Jewish, and he's not alive anymore. He died like 3
I mean,
years
look
later.
at the profile of this man. You're telling me that he's lying about it? All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
Basically, in the early 1900s, the German Jewish immigrants came in, and when they were trying to get into different industries, there was a lot of anti-Semitism where they couldn't get into normal lines of work. I'm not saying that porn's not normal. So they gravitated towards the porn industry because it's like kind of the seedier cousin of the Hollywood industry, which had already been controlled by the Jews.
Pause. Again,
Yeah.
this is their own admission. Like, it is not anti-Semitic. It is not a lie. They're admitting that Hollywood was already controlled by the Jews, and they moved into pornography. And the people who it was not really extant in this country until the Jews came over from Europe during World War II. Before, during, and after World War II. That is what he's saying, and you know that seems to line up with.
You better shut up. You're just as bad as the synagogue shooter. Because the synagogue shooter in his 4,000-word manifesto had like one sentence that talked about Jews and porn. And the fact that you're saying the same thing basically makes you a terrorist.
Well, they need to be. I mean, look at they're fueling right-wing conspiracies. Then I guess they're fueling mass shootings of synagogues.
True. That is true, actually.
I think we should cancel them.
Well, I mean, this guy did get canceled a few years later. I mean, he died a few years later. I don't remember the circumstance. A little strange.
Well, I mean, he probably wasn't living the most wholesome lifestyle. Let's put it that way. But
oh, impossible! No, these people are upstanding everywhere.
As he said,
always.
porn is normal, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. Not that it's not normal. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play.
And basically, they pretty much just took it over. If you look at the big stars, did I break my chair already?
I think so.
Okay, back. So basically, back in the 1960s, 70s, it was founded by people like Danny Mamet and Danny Skura, and then later in the 80s, the godfather of the modern day porn industry, his name was Reuben Sterman, who was actually an Orthodox Jew. He owned over 200 bookstores all around the country. He's actually my godfather, which is kind of weird. Reuben Sterman, what the Jews did pretty much was they revolutionized the adult industry and made it their own. So there was no space for anti-Semitism, and they basically controlled everything. So back in the 80s, the only way you could get pornography was to go through someone like Reuben Sturman, and he controlled, all of his stores and all the stores that that he didn't own. They actually had to pay him a tax to carry his product, and he was the only place that you could get product from, peep shows from. And later, what the Jews did was they started the manufacturing end of the business. There were a lot of Italians that were coming into the business, but what they did
Pause it for a
was
sec.
they created the manufacturing.
I like how he just straight up says the Jews. Like, again, if it was anyone else saying this, it would probably make news to some extent.
Oh yeah, can you imagine if
The
a
Jews.
even some minor like Republican member of Congress was like, "Oh yeah," and imagine if Marjorie Taylor Greene was like, "Yeah."
No, that actually did happen. You remember Paul Nealon?
Yes, I do.
He actually shared what I must say is a very good video about the Semitic influence in the porn industry. He shared that video, and that made national news.
Remind
So
me,
the
what
thing
was
you're
he
describing-
running for again? I
He was
feel like
was he in Wisconsin or something?
he was
Yeah,
definitely in
Wisconsin's first
Wisconsin, but I don't remember if it was Senate or if it was governor
It was
or
it was the first congressional district.
ah.
So it's the House of Representatives. But yeah, I mean, literally the thing you're talking about happened, and it made national news.
All right, we're gonna continue on 3, 2,
Yeah, go ahead.
1, play.
Manufacturing side, which is the replication, the printing, because back in the day, if you wanted to make a VHS or a beta tape or whatever, you couldn't go down to Kinko's or any mainstream printer and be like, I want to print, Gang Bang My Mom #3 or something.
Here, pause for a second.
Yeah, no.
And notice, like, the first thing as a porn title he brings up is something just off the wall, degenerate, that would very obviously be seen by members of sane society as something just off the wall, ridiculous, degenerate behavior. That is why, and that sort of flies in the face of his earlier comment, porn is normal, right? If porn is so normal, why would that even raise eyebrows? Why can't you go down to Kinko's and print off Gang Bang My Mom #3?
Right.
Because that's very
Yeah,
clearly something that's sick and unnatural.
Right. And you can only wonder when, some point down the road when something akin to that will get normalized. Because you know that's the intention. Like, the slippery slope is never going to stop with any of this.
I've said it
And
before.
I think,
No, go on.
no, I mean, it is interesting you pointed that out. That didn't occur to me, actually, where he mentioned that, not that it isn't normal, and then the first thing that comes to his mind is something that is just so obviously objectionable to, like, 95% of people. Take away the Vosh Reddit types who wouldn't really have anything wrong with that. Or, like, the most severe lolberts in the world, like a Nick Gillespie on steroids. Only they wouldn't have any issue with that.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play.
I promised I would.
Clearly.
That works too. We haven't done that yet, but. So what they did was they created all of these companies that manufactured DVDs and VHS and beta and printing, and all the companies pretty much had to go through the Jews. Reuben Sturman, actually, eventually he died in prison. They tried to get him from obscenity back in the 80s, which was a big thing.
Is that true? Pause for a second. Is that true? Can we fact check that? Can we debunk that if he was
Let me do.
What exactly did he go to jail for?
So Reuben Sturman, sometimes referred to as the Walt Disney of porn, he died October 1997, convicted of tax evasion in 1989 and extortion in 1993. Let's see if in the 80s there's any obscenity problems, because I know that was a thing.
Why would he lie about that, though? Like, that is not what he just said. Maybe he's just wrong?
So, Wikipedia, 1989, another charge, this time for the interstate transportation of obscene material, resulted in a plea bargain. And he was later caught trying to bribe a juror via his ex-wife.
Sounds like an upstanding citizen.
Oh, yes. Just like the Ron Jeremy guy, who's like standing trial, or at least they recently found he was too mentally ill to stand trial, but he had like 20 or 30 sexual assault allegations against
That
him.
was one thing that I never got, and that must be like consummate like Coomer brain. Like he was getting laid with very attractive women very frequently, and yet he still feels the need to like commit these heinous sexual crimes. Like,
Yeah,
what is
something's
up
kinda
with
wrong
that?
with you. Yeah, you are fucked in the head. Like, you don't belong in polite society.
No. All right, 3, 2, 1, play.
And it actually still is a resident vicinity arrest today. But he eventually died in prison because of tax evasion because he didn't want to pay taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, he brought that up.
So that's, you know, it happens.
Yeah, choosing money.
Choosing money is the next taboo talk.
I would go to that.
I mean, next year.
Rabbi,
Buy your tickets today.
do you want to weigh in on this? So let's follow that up with the relationship between the Jews who got involved in this industry because they couldn't get involved in mainstream Hollywood, and their relationship with non-Jews then who were in this industry. Was there a stigma? Because while they did control a variety, historically control a lot of this industry, was there a stigma about those who were actively, let's say, making the films about being Jewish in this movie? Was there a stigma within it? And was there a stigma from other Jews who are in the community? And where is that at today versus historically?
Let me just answer that question quick. Back in the 70s, the majority of the male porn performers were Jewish, and the majority of the female performers were Roman Catholic.
Stop.
Well, he's spreading more hateful disinformation.
Yeah, that's definitely infuriating. I think that there's a reason why it was not Jewish women. And that's the other thing too, is they act like, oh, woe is me, we Jews, we because of the anti-Semitism, we couldn't get into normal industries, so we were forced into banking, we were forced into Hollywood, we were forced into pornography. But if that were the case, one would anticipate that they would be disproportionately populated by Jewish women as well, not Roman Catholics. All right. Continuing on. 3, 2, 1, play.
And if you look at the names from like the classic porn stars, you got Ron Jeremy.
Oh boy, I just want to work. It's like, no, take this bag of money and start making money.
Is that his real name or his porn name?
That's his porn name.
No, I caught that. The only reason that we have to have utilizing control of all these things is because we were forced to. People were so mean to us. That's why.
Yeah, it's just off the wall.
And
what's really just grinding my gears is how like they think it's all funny. Like I forget that it was probably a meme that was circulating around on 4chan, but it's like, these people want you dead and they think it's funny. Like these people are willingly warping your mind and they think it's funny. Like these are the people who are telling you porn is normal.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, well, that's the funny thing about the question, if you know what I'm talking about, in general, is it's maybe it's a little fallacious to always just point to early life and see, so doesn't that get your noggin going? But it's like the fact that a lot of this shit just emanates from the same type of people really should get your noggin going. Like, you have to disable the pattern recognition part of your brain and go, nope, nothing to see here. No, there's definitely nothing remarkable about any of this.
And I think that's one of the main functions of something like mandatory public schooling, is like they need to be able to get in there very early on and disable the pattern recognition.
Oh, yeah, like in Germany. In Germany, it's literally illegal to homeschool your kid. Like, it's not tolerated. You have to go through the mainstream system. I mean, if there's any country that almost emblemizes getting these people, it's Germany. I mean, they are still guilted and raked over the coals over the Holocaust.
And that would be an interesting topic for
78 years now. 78 years ago, they won't let it go.
Most of the people, number one, all the main actors have long been dead whether executed at Nuremberg or just died of natural
They
causes.
still like to witch hunt and catch like these. Oh, this 95-year-old woman who, when she was 18 or 19, was like a typewriter person that they had somewhere in a Nazi staff office, and they made
that's
sure
what I
to
mean.
crack
They
down
go
on
after some guy who was like a guard for 6 months at
Yes.
like Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
mean,
like,
just
well, what
the
did you
most-
want him to do? You know?
the most bloodthirsty sort of vengeance fantasies that they're trying to carry out against every single person who they imagine has wronged them.
And that would be an interesting stream, or maybe even a video for another time, is exactly like what was done to Germany, and to a lesser extent like Austria, Hungary, Romania, you know, those people who were involved in that. What was done to Japan to sort of I'm struggling.
Are you talking about post-war? Are you talking post-World War II?
I'm talking post-war Allied occupation, like change completely, really conquer their mind, to not only occupy their territory, but to occupy their minds and get them to the point where, you know, everything that ever happened pre-1946 was bad, like to completely get them to bow to Western powers and to alter their way of life. Like, it was a very real, very concerted effort, and there is a reason that, you know, post-war, like, American military personnel never left. Like, they're still
there. Right. And yeah, I mean, well, I'm going to send you a video you can look at sometime. It's from PaxTube. He's a Tradcath YouTuber who kind of planted the thought in my head of countries like Japan and Italy and Germany post-war. Like, are they really democracies? Like, are they really under an ideal form of government? If you look at the neutering of Japan, where they couldn't even have their own military or declare war,
they still can't. They're still not allowed to have.
It's so off. They got like a fuck ton of trouble when he tried to do that for Japan. When he tried to regain some autonomy, all the shitlibs went
well, and they do have somebody's gonna fact check me and be like, yeah, they've got their helicopter carrier. It's really an aircraft carrier, but they just call it. Yeah, I know, I'm aware, but still, you know, they're still. I get a lot of flack, especially from normies, when I refer to NATO members or, you know, our Pacific allies as American vassal states, and or even just Anglo vassal states. That's what it is. Like, the idea that they're actual democracies is farcical. Like, what happens? It's the same thing like what happened in the former Confederate states post-war. Like, oh yeah, they get to rejoin the Union and have representation in Congress, but you gave the vote to freed blacks and forbade anyone who was even associated with the Confederate government from voting. So it's like, yeah, the people who were ideologically opposed to, you know, Vox Populi were the ones who were allowed to have representation, you know. And that's I don't know for certain. I guess I do know for certain. I mean, the prominent Nazis were rounded up and executed, so I suppose.
Well, apparently there's like Operation Paperclip, where we like also at the same time grabbed the Nazis that we thought had expertise and then used them for the Cold War.
Well, we did the same thing with Unit 731 in Japan. You know,
that's
part of the reason why they never stood for their egregious. Even if you're taking like the horror porn at face value, like very obviously the things that the Japanese did were much worse than, you know. Well, I think I'll stop there before I.
As I like to say, like, if 1/10 of what we think is true about the Imperial Japanese, it's like nightmare levels, if not beyond.
And there's nobody's mad at Japan in the modern day except the Chinese, like the Koreans, you know. So, but continuing on, we'll see this video through to the end because I'm sure that there is another nugget of important information. All right, 3, 2. I'm at 5:06 by the way too. I think you didn't stop.
Okay. Yeah, I will go there now. Okay. 2, 1, go.
That's not the one I would pick.
But
That's the next question.
It's kind of funny because those guys came into the industry, and I actually asked a couple of them because I asked Ron Jeremy, And I was like, why did you guys, decide to go into the porn industry? Like, what was it that drew you? And besides, like, the obvious, you're like, I got to fuck Roman Catholic chicks.
Stop. Stop it. Yeah. That's what I mean, is these people, look at these smarmy fucks. They get off. They absolutely get off on corruption of the corruptions of the Goyim.
Well, you clearly haven't heard of Al Goldstein. You know who Al Goldstein is?
I do not know.
If you want to, and this little fucker admits to it too, if you want to embody like the whole, like the conspiracy theorist wet dream about Jews and porn, Al Goldstein is totally representative and emblematic of that. Like he's even said in some interview for Screw magazine, very very tasteful, where he said the reason Jews are in porn is because we think Christ sucks. Like that's verbatim what he says. I'll pull up the article so you can get the citation, but like it's exactly what you're saying and worse.
Evil cannot create.
It can only destroy. Yes. Oh yeah. So here's the quote. The only reason Jews are in pornography is we think that Christ sucks. Catholicism sucks. We Jews don't believe in authoritarianism, as he calls it. Or I'm sure his threshold for authoritarianism is not letting me be a total degenerate 100% of the time. And the more you learn about Al Goldstein, the more you figure out how human filth can be embodied in a human being. It's Al Goldstein.
And it's like they recognize too they definitely recognize the corruptive nature of pornography. Like they recognize they internalize that what they're doing is bad and they like it. Like I just can't even get into that frame of mind.
Yeah. But it makes them special. Anyhow, let's finish this off.
Sure.
3, 2, 1.
And fulfill every fan. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're okay. Okay.
Was she clapping for that?
I don't know. I couldn't tell.
And fulfill every fantasy that every Jewish boy has ever had. So, I think the Jewish performers, they've always been really prevalent in the industry, and even now Ron Jeremy is still, like one of the most well-known performers. James Dean, Joanna Angel, Daphne Rosen, there's a bunch of them. And for the most part, the business side is still controlled by Jews. You have Steve Hirsch, who runs Vivid. You have Steve Orenstein, who runs Wicked. You have me, who runs the biggest porn company in the world. Second biggest. But for the most part, all the business owners are pretty much Jewish or have Jewish ties or at some point worked for a Jew in the porn business or getting their start. So I forgot what the question was, but I hope I answered it.
You did. You're good.
Yay!
No, but it's a huge debate right now in that community.
So that's what I wanted to add. Is there's like a lot of feminist porn that I don't know if you can call that Jewish pornography. But
yeah, that.
Yeah, so I mean, he just gives the game away. It's hilarious. Just every quote unquote conspiracy theorist talking point, and he's just like, "Yeah, it's all true. Yeah, it's great."
Oops, wrong one. Are you in Watch Together right now?
No, I'm not, because it's not functioning well for me. Maybe I should try again, though. What do you want to do with that?
Oh, I think Borat can say it better than I can.
I guess so. Yeah. I already listened to it once, so you can just play it for the audience.
Yeah.
Then we have a big party. In my country there is problem, and that problem is the Jew. They take everybody money, they never give it back. Throw the Jew down the well, so my country can be free. You must.
Yeah, that guy gets it. He himself is Jewish. Borat, the actor who plays Borat, is Jewish. So
yeah,
please no channel termination, YouTube. It's all satire. All right. Well, I think we have extensively covered the topics we wish to cover. So rather than belabor the point, I think we might cut it short here. So thanks to everyone who tuned in. I appreciate the viewership and interaction from the audience. And there is more to come from me soon. Unfortunately, life sort of got in the way. So I'll be making more content soon. If you want to come hang out, I don't know if you already posted the link into the Gilded in the chat.
Let me do it again. I did it before. I'll do it one more time. I mean, there's
Okay.
nobody watching right now, but just for good measure.
Oh yeah,
'Cause it's
for
all
sure.
like-
And then if that's the case, then I can, because on my screen it says 4 is still watching, but.
It said 1.
Oh, no,
it's 2
whatever.
now.
It doesn't matter. We'll throw it in the description. But until next time.